طيب. مرحبا جميعا. آه، مساء الخير بالأردن. صباح الخير للي موجودين هون بأمريكا. آه، بداية بحب أعرفكم على نفسي. أنا رامي الأحمد، أخصائي باطني في الولايات المتحدة. حاليا أنا بشتغل بجامعة ييل في كونيتيكت، أخصائي باطني اللي بشتغل هون من 2017. عملت ريزيدنسي انترنال ميديسن ريزيدنسي بنيو جيرسي بسيتون هول يونيفرسيتي من 2014 ل 2017. قبل هيك أنا خريج التكنولوجيا من 2010. حاليا أنا بشرفني إني أكون القائم أو المسؤول عن الريزيدنت كوميتي بجاب وجوردينيان أمريكان فيزيشنز. السنة الماضية كان ناصر غرايبة، وحاليا أنا. وإن شاء الله إنه يعني خلال هالسنة نقدر إنه نساعد أكبر عدد ممكن من الأردنيين أنهم يحصلوا إقامة في الولايات المتحدة. الموضوع مش سهل، بس بيحتاج تعاون كبير من كل الأردنيين، ولهذا السبب إحنا حبينا نعمل هاي المحاضرة. هاي المحاضرة رح تكون يعني بتوقع معظمكم يعني بده يقدم على الماتش السنة هاي. عارف تقريبا قاطع نص الطريق إذا مش أكثر. حابب أشارككم بتجربتي الشخصية، بنصائح يعني أنا تعلمتها من خلال تجربتي، كمان من خلال تعاملي مع كثير ناس بريزيدنت وطلاب خلال تقريبا فترة 10 سنين تقريبا. فإحنا هلا الساعة 10 ودقيقتين. أنا رأيي ممكن نبلش، وإن شاء الله إنه يعني الناس اللي who wants to join يعني they can join later. راح يكون معنا الدكتور محمد عبدات. هو سنة أولى باطني، قدم على الماتش السنة الماضية، و he will share his experience. ودكتور عبد الله مقدادي I hope he will also be able to join. راح أحكي معظم الحكي راح يكون بالإنجليزي just for simplicity of you know talking and delivery of message. مش لأني بدي حابب أحكي بالإنجليزي. الأسئلة إذا في حدا عنده أي سؤال ممكن نخليه يعني لآخر المحاضرة أفضل، على أساس إنه يعني نجمع أكبر عدد ممكن من الأسئلة بدون تكرار. كبداية اللي راح نحكي عليه اليوم، أولاً راح I will share with you some insights about the Jordanian match data, and this is actually very interesting and very interesting data, and this is probably the first time we share it with large group. We've been working on this data for almost 3 years. Recently, we're trying to publish it, actually make an article about it and publish it. The second part will be about tips to assess successful match. And the third part will be about discussion, questions, and sharing of experience with my colleagues, Dr. Ahmed and Dr. Abdullah. So as a start, for Jordanians match data, actually, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We know it is there, we see it, we know there's something, but there's like more data that would, you know, we hope that we be able to collect, hopefully with your help, those who are applying, and now you're gonna see why, those who are applying to the match this year, every year we generate more data and we'll have more understanding about how Jordanians perform in the match. So here's what we did. As probably many of you know, in the last 3 years, we've been asking everyone who, or at least as many as we can, for those who applied to the match to fill out a survey. And the survey, we kind of included questions about their medical school, their performance in the USMLE exams, and any research experience. How did they do in the match? Did they match or they did not? And we did this for the last 3 years, 2019, 20, and 2021. We had variant responses throughout the years. Totally, we had 237 applicants. So what we thought about, okay, let's make it as a one pool, so we have a larger population, and then let's compare years, and then let's compare those who match versus those who did not. So we have a more power when we do the statistics. So here is the comparison between the years of match cycle. And it's a busy schedule, I know, but I can walk you through it. And there are like a very certain numbers that we have to, look at and be careful when we understand it. So as I mentioned, there were like a different responses throughout the years. The match rate actually, it significantly dropped in the last match cycle, and it went down to 73%. If we try to analyze why this happened, so we looked at the average step 1 score, which was almost the same throughout the years. Same thing for step 2, the clinical knowledge exam, which was almost similar. CS exam, more people with second or more attempt, actually, they applied in the last match cycle. And this can be, explained by the different pathways that the ECFMG implemented after they canceled the CS exam. Despite a lower match rate, the number of application actually went up. And this also can be explained by the virtual nature of the last match cycle. Many people like Jordanian and international medical graduates, and overall, actually, even American graduates, because of the virtual interviews and decreased cost of traveling and logistics, they decided, okay, why not spend more money on applications? So the number of applications actually went significantly higher. However, the number of interviews actually went down. So the highest was 11 in 2019, then dropped to 8 in 2020, and then to 7. And as you can see here, the match rate drops as the number of interview goes down, which we'll talk more about it. More people needed visa sponsorship last year, which could also be a reason for the lower match rate overall. And they had a higher research experience. We also analyzed GPA in their medical school, which we did not really find any difference. So this is a comparison between the years. So now we said, okay, let's compare between those who match versus those who did not. And by the way, all this data is from Jordanian applicants, and I think there are like few from the West Bank. But you can consider that as a one pool. So you can see here, clearly there is a significant difference between their score, those who match, the one in blue, the one in green, and their step 1 exam, 236 compared to 243. And in their step 2 clinical knowledge exam, 241 compared to 248. And when we did univariable analysis, for those who knows about statistics, sometimes univariable analysis by itself cannot be sufficient. So we did an extra step. I'll come to it later. But here you can generate a general idea that based on your score, maybe you can classify yourself which group you're going to end up with. So we compared year of application, as we mentioned earlier, people who matched in 2019 were the highest, were the lowest in 2021. Step one was significantly different between the two groups. Same thing for step two, for CS. Even the GPA was a bit different. We had more people with excellent GPA that ended up matching versus those who did not. But I wouldn't really stress really much about the GPA. You can see here, there's a guy who with one person with poor GPA who ended up matching. So research experience was actually surprisingly different. And if you want to summarize it, there's like, we asked for many categories like research experience, without publication, published articles or poster or abstracts, versus no research experience at all. What I would like to highlight here is that people who did not match, they have really had like almost 50% of them, they had no research experience at all. So that's really actually very high number. And we figure out that research experience actually is one of the factors that can lead to successful match. Number of application actually was not really that much different. The most striking difference was in the number of interviews. There were like 3.5 on average for those who didn't match versus 9.7. Does that mean that people with like less than 3, they won't really match? Doesn't really necessarily say so. However, because here you see like the standard deviation is 7. So if you subtract 9.7, 7 from 9.7, there are some people who got 2 interviews and ended up matching. However, the number of 3.5 or 3 in general, if you get less than 3 interviews, there's a high chance, unfortunately, that you may not end up matching. There's like a very slight difference in the letter of recommendations from the US and those who are applying the first time versus for the second time. So as I mentioned earlier, that was a univariable analysis, which means that we just compared between one factor per group. So what we did multiple logistic regression, and the multivariable logistic regression, what does it usually do is that it eliminates confounding factors. And what we found that is to be significantly different between the two groups, or what can lead to a successful match, is the number of interviews was significantly high, and the research experience. The step 2 CS, yes, it is significant, but I have to mention here, to better understand logistic regression, you have to look also in the confidence interval, which was very wide here. Does that mean that step 2 CS doesn't lead to, does like a second attempt increases the risk of unsuccessful match? Yes, it does. However, it is not really as powerful as the other 2 factors. Surprisingly, we did not really find any difference in USMLE scores, US experience, or number of applications. So I know there's like a lot of numbers. Maybe some of you got confused, maybe worried that, oh, okay, maybe, oh, okay, Lord, really, my scores are really low in step 1, let's say, or step 2. What do I get from all this data? So what I would really try to stress on is that interviews is the most successful or the most important factor for you to have a successful match. The more interviews you will have, the higher the chance that you will end up matching. And then now we'll talk about how do you generate more interviews. The virtual interviews actually it was like a double sword thing. It was helpful in that it eliminated a lot of cost. And there's like no need to travel. There's no need to spend a lot of money on traveling and logistics. But at the same time, it actually negatively impacted people, especially international medical graduates. And as we can see, Jordanian applicants as well, because what happened is more people applied and more people, and each applicant had more number of applications. So the pool of applicants and applications actually went up. So programs actually had a really challenging time filtering all these applications. And because of the larger pool, what they did last year is that they increased their threshold for accepting any applicant for the interview pool at least. Some programs, they increased their interview spots. However, that was not really sufficient to come up with increasing the pool of applicants. So, and with this year, most likely is going to be virtual again. So there will be, more challenging to that. Adding to this that step one now is in the way of being pass and fail. So like no more, like less factors to decide which applicant is good. And CS now being eliminated or canceled. Step one now is going to be pass and fail. So and the virtual interview, there's like no real interaction with applicants. What this did actually, it made more emphasis on other factors like research experience, your letter of recommendations, connections, and also probably your GPA in your medical school. So the last thing I would like to stress on from the data that I just shared with you, that yes, data is something. I like data. I like to see exactly how do Jordanian perform in the match, rather than how do IMG perform in the match. It is something, but it's not everything. Don't get worried that okay, my score is in step one is 231, so this is probably I won't really match. It doesn't work this way. And every time we post the match like survey results, some people come up and ask, okay, can you share me the data with me? I know someone who with fail attempt CS and who ended up matching. I just want to see exactly what's their credential. It doesn't really necessarily work this way. You have to look to your application as something different than anything else. The data will give you guidance. Okay, what are my chances to match? And hopefully with each year we'll have more data and we'll have more kind of confidence saying that yes, people with this credentials probably will not end up matching versus they're going to end up matching. Like for example, last year there are like some people I know personally with 250s and 260s did not end up matching, unfortunately. So you have to look for the general picture rather than individual stories. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind. So now we're done about the data, and you got now probably a sense of how do you compare yourself to other Jordanians. We'll talk about how do you increase your likelihood of matching. And probably now most of you actually, they already finished these steps. You already did with your electives, step one and step two, and CS if you're old applicant. And now you're ready to apply here. Let's start your application, personal statement. So as you can see, it's a long way. and it's a very hard way, actually. It's not easy as you think. It's going to need a lot of patience. It's going to need a lot of persistence and to be smart and socially, emotionally, and all aspects, actually. So I will walk you through most of the steps here. We're not going to talk about electives because I think we already passed this. The first thing that you have to do, so in order, you have to decide what is your goal, what is your summit that you're trying to reach. If your goal is to be in a very competitive specialty, like let's say surgery, anesthesia, neurosurgery, it is not impossible. I know people who got it. If this is your goal, your way is going to be your pathway is going to, or your road is going to be way higher, much harder than other applicants. And you have to be more prepared for that. So like a common pathway is not for you. You have to go for another pathway to find your way to the goal. Similar thing if you are really someone who's putting a goal to be in a competitive program, like this top Ivy League universities, or those who are like really only for the American graduates. It's not impossible, but if this is your goal, you have to work hard for it. You have to do research. You have to spend more money on improving yourself, probably doing a degree like in PH or in BA. So all that help, but it's going to be on the expense of your time and money, probably. Me personally, I think the best goal is to match, period. Don't look where I'm going to end up matching. Don't look where, which specialty I should match. If your goal is to match, it's like, just go for it. A lot of people will be stressed more about, yes, I want to match in a very good program. Yes, that's a good goal. However, things are getting more competitive right now. So you have to be smart on choosing your goal. And also something to put in mind, although I don't really stress much about it right now, and I don't advise anyone to do that, is that don't put a lot of stress on your future career. Like, let's say some people say, I want to be a cardiologist, or I want to be a gastroenterologist. And we know that these fellowships are competitive. It's going to be much harder if you end up in a community program to get these kind of fellowship. However, it's not impossible. I won't really stress much about your future career goal, but look on the short-term goal, which is to match. This is very important. And because by doing so, you're going to distract yourself. So you define your goal. Now you have to start early. And I know probably many of you right now probably already have started their applications or maybe done with it, hopefully. The application, like the deadline, or it's not a deadline, it's like when programs start viewing application is less than a month from now. So if you haven't started your application, please do start right now. Like at the end of the lecture, you go start kind of do all the steps needed to do that. And you have to put a deadline. Don't put September 29th, put September 20th, like a week before, because you need to review your application, ask someone to review it for you. And by the way, when you ask someone to review it for you, don't assume that they're going to reply to you the next day. It may need time. A lot of people are busy, especially here in the US. So give them room to review your application, your personal statement. And when the other part of your application that probably is going to be time stressful is your letter of recommendations. And because you're relying on someone else to do it for you. We'll talk about the tips, how to, fasten the process. But if you shouldn't, by now, you already asked your letter of recommendation authors to have it at least started writing it for you, or probably maybe you've already submitted it, because it's going to need 4 to 5 business days to be processed by ERAS. So that's important. And also this applies for your personal statement. You already should, by now, you already have at least semi-final draft or final draft that you want to ask someone to review it for you. So start from now. Scores. So probably all of you know that scores is the most important factor, is one of the most important factors to get interviews. We did not find a difference from our data, but generally speaking, this is the most important factor. So I know most of you probably already done with their scores. But those who like still need one more step to do, please take my advice. Don't rush your final step so you can get into the match, because if you end up getting a low score, this is going to harm your, not only your chances to match, but also can harm you also in the future in your fellowship. So don't really rush it. If you don't feel ready, that's fine. Take your time, apply next year. Don't be much stressed about the time. A simple mistake like this, going to an exam that you're now ready just because to catch the match, it can cause really harm that for many steps you've just done very well previously. Another important note to make here is that it's okay to be late rather than applying without full score or not to be certified, because they look on this when they filter the applications. So if you think that you're going to need 1 or more week to kind of like to finish your step 2, let's say, just do it. Maybe you can apply late a little bit, a week or 2, maybe 3 weeks. After that, after you get your results, you can email the programs, tell them that, hey, I applied late. Can you take a look at my application? But don't rush your exam. A lot of people ask about step 3. This is really helpful. We did actually analysis from the Jordanian applicants in the last 3 years, and actually it was not different, wasn't helpful. The most helpful part of step 3 is just for H1 visa. If you're looking for that, this is really helpful. And now with elimination of step 2, the clinical skill exam, more people are more encouraged, especially with the second attempt, to apply. Unfortunately, some programs, they still look into this, and they they can know about it, even though you have a different pathway to do it. It's for some programs, it still count. Hopefully with time, by now, that is kind of being eliminated. It's going to take less weight on your application. But for now, you can consider that if you have a second attempt, it's a red flag in your application. So now you're done with your steps. You define your goal. You want to start your application. Generally speaking, you have to avoid really any silly mistakes like grammars or unmatched dates. Like, for example, you put 2 time period for the same experience. Your application has to be detailed and relevant, but not at the same time concise. You don't have to add like a paragraph. I would say for each experience, it has to be 2 to 3 lines at the max, because programs that receive thousands of applications, they're not going to read like 5 or 6 lines for one experience. Just be concise. The main role, what was your role? What did you do? What kind of skills you gained from there? And you add only relevant experience. You don't have to add like you worked as a GP in a clinic for 1 month. Really, a 1 month gap doesn't really make any difference in your application. But again, they receive a lot of applications. They look for they look for the details, but at the same time, they don't look for all small details. That doesn't really matter. And part of your application is a lot of recommendations. Many questions like that come up is that, I have 3 recommendations from the US and one from Jordan for my chair of the department or something like this. Which one should I use? You always, always, always use your US letter of recommendations, unless the program specifically asks for a letter from your chairman or department head from your university. Something like this, or the dean's, like something from, like a letter from your dean. If the program is not asking for this, always put the letter of any letter of recommendations from the US, especially if you think it's a good letter. If you don't think that it's gonna be a good letter, it will be up to you. But I'd assume that anyone who's gonna write a letter for you is gonna be a good one. And when it comes to letter of recommendation writing, something that it's a tip that I find it easy for me to use. And if you haven't asked your author to start writing a letter for you right now, what you can do is draft a letter and just send the letter to him or her, especially if they are in the US. And that will be very much helpful. And believe me, they won't really mind it. They actually will be very happy about it. They will take a look, change a little bit of stuff, send it with your resume and your probably personal statement, and then they can send it back to you easy, or probably just upload it. This is a very, probably the quickest way of doing this. And don't feel shy. Just write yourself the best recommendation letter that you can ever write, and be specific. Don't write like a generic letter. Be specific about yourself. You can take a look on Google, read like there's a specific element in each recommendation letter that has to be met, like how many, the duration of working with the author, the setting, specific skills, and lately will be the recommendation. So be personal and be very specific. Don't kind of like copy and paste a letter from someone else, from your colleague, and just send it to him. Just be specific about yourself. And believe me, actually, that can be very helpful for you. Personal statement, the same thing. Be yourself. Don't copy and paste. Be creative. Don't do the generic, form of, I saw someone in my 7th grade who died, and now I'm interested in medicine. And you want to bypass that area that you're already done with your medical school. They're not interested in reading why you became a doctor. They want to see why you want to be an internist, or why you want to be a pediatrician. So pass this area and concentrate more on your future goal, like why you want to be internist, why this program, why you want to be in that city, for example. Be much specific. One thing I'd really advise many is that if you know the program very well, let's say that you did an elective in that program, or you know someone there, mention the name of the program in your personal statement. You can do as many personal statements as you can. So let's say you did elective in Mayo Clinic. You can mention that I want to be in Mayo Clinic because it's hot, ranked #1 in the US. It has many educational, all this stuff. So be very specific and try not to exceed 1 page. Make this your goal. Probably 1.5 is okay. More than that is actually very long. So we're done with your application, and now you're ready to apply. How many programs you have to choose, or how many programs you have to apply to? My personal opinion, and this is my experience from, my personal experience, my experience from many people, is that less is more. Applying for more programs doesn't really necessarily mean more interviews. You have to choose your program wisely and smartly. And what I would advise everyone to do, and we're going to share a list of Jordanians programs where Jordanian interviews and matched soon in the next few days. Look for Jordanians. And if you don't believe me, let me show you the data from the last year's survey. So here's what we did. We asked the applicant, is there any Jordanian currently or previously in the program you matched in? 60 people responded to that, and 75 of them actually said yes. So I can guarantee you that this actually apply even if we asked like 1,000 people, Jordanian. So your highest chance is actually to match in a program where it's like currently there's a Jordanian there, or maybe someone who was there. So this is going to be your main goal. Adding more programs, like programs they don't have like any IMG, is a waste. Applying for programs that is like almost impossible to get, like Harvard or Yale, or not because you're not a good candidate. Probably I know a lot of you is like really good, but you have to be very smart. You're just wasting money on these applications, so don't even think about it. So look, where is the Jordanian? And I think that's going to be your main success to that. Speaking about Jordanians, and a lot of a question that usually come up, and a lot of debate about it, is connections. Does connection really help? It does help, yes. And actually it can be very helpful than any of the other factors. If your connection is someone who is willing to help, he has a lot of weight in the program, he can actually not only get you an interview, he can help you with the ranking, to rank you high. However, these type of connection is not usually common. Most of the Jordanians, unfortunately, end up in a private, setting of work. So, and your biggest, the most helpful connection is going to be someone who is in the program, like a resident, a fellow, or recent graduate from that program. So asking someone who's been out of residency for 10 years probably won't really have much, won't really add much. And if you know someone, you should ask early, because what happened is that person, this is applied not only me, this is applied almost for everyone who graduated. They get many requests each year, and unfortunately we can't really help everyone. So ask early, like now, ask people, like, don't wait until you apply. If you know that you're going to apply to that program, if you know that that person is in that program, or he was in that program, just approach him or her, and don't be shy to ask. Actually, many they like, but they don't know me, like, what should I do? No, don't, like, you're not asking, you're not borrowing money, or you're not asking a personal, favor. This is a match. We've been all in this process. I did this. Everyone probably did this. So don't be shy. Be polite when you ask. Be personal. Like, don't send a generic message to everyone. Mention the name. Very concise. My name, I'm applying to your program. Would really appreciate if you can help me with getting an interview. You can probably send your resume as well. And it may or may not work. If it doesn't work, just be understandable. Don't assume that if someone refuses your request, that they're not willing to help. It just, like, sometimes doesn't really help, like, it doesn't work. I mean, I tried myself, like, to get interviews for many people, and it didn't really work. So just be be understandable, be polite. If they said no, just say, okay, fine, I'm really understand. And today or yesterday, I received a very, a unique message, unique request actually from someone. And I wish actually if I got it earlier, probably I would help. She was from Jordan, and was very, very professional, very polite message, very concise, highlighted her main, credentials, her scores, uh, research experience. And unfortunately, I replied, negatively that I can't really help. And she was very polite in replying back. So that's kind of like something that kind of actually makes that, anyone probably, even if they have more effort, probably can help. So keep it open. You never know. Just ask for it. And for us as a Jordanian American Physician Committee, some people will blame, or say, they're not doing enough to help applicants. And the situation actually is more complicated than this. It's not about just, asking someone. We're trying, we really trying kind of like, match people together or connect people together, like mentees, mentors, uh, see exactly someone who did not really match. Probably we can boost their application. But it's like, as of now, the Jordanian American Physicians Group actually, we're very tight hand. So we can't really do much, but we're doing our best. Uh, just to give you an example from the last year also survey about did connection help you in the match? And almost 69% said yes in getting interviews, and 10% said yes in getting interviews and to match. So totally probably not 70% said yes. So yes, go for connections. Again, your biggest help will going to be someone you know from medical school, someone you worked with who is in the program right now, relative of you, someone, a common person between, like, a friend of your friend who can, can rely on. These are the biggest help. Someone is strange, they may not help, but I encourage everyone to just go for it and don't be afraid or don't be shy, just be polite. And the last thing I want to talk about is interviews. Again, we mentioned that interviews is the most important factor to get matched. So practice, practice, practice. Once you're done with your application, you submitted your application, start practicing for interviews. Virtual interviews is going to need a higher level of training and controlling your body language. It's going to also make you think of how should I create the perfect setting. You have to have a quiet room, nice surroundings. You don't have to have a lot of chaos around you or noises. So start thinking from now, where is going to be my perfect setting to do my interviews. And once you apply, I advise everyone to send emails to the programs to ask them to highlight yourself. Again, people are like, they get thousands of applications and they get also thousands of these emails. Be very specific about the program, be concise. Hey, my name is this is my resume. I'm applying for, let's say, Mayo Clinic because I did my elective there. If you can take my application into your consideration. And you never know. Probably out of 10, we're gonna work maybe one, but you never know. So I would encouragely advise you to do that. And the last thing is about virtual interviews. And we asked people last year if the virtual interviews actually negatively impacted your chances to get interviews or to match. it kind of like it split it to like 1/3 said yes, it impacted my chances of getting interviews. On the other hand, almost 1/3 actually they said no, actually it actually was helpful. So it's about how you look at it. Generally speaking, virtual interviews did really negatively impacted people, but at the same time, try to invest this. Say, take a look at it as a positive, or like opportunity that what probably is going to be helpful for me. I'm going to practice my interviews, and it's good, probably going to work for me. So I hope these tips are helpful, and I wish everyone a successful match. Yeah. And so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to have an open discussion. So first of all, if Ahmed Abidat is here, if you can unmute yourself and
Yes.
start sharing your, tell us about yourself. How was your experience with the virtual interviews, all this stuff.
Tamam. Thank you, Dr. Rami, for this statistics. It was very interesting. أعرفكم بحالي اسمي أحمد عبيدات PGY1 بميد ستار واشنطن هوسبيتال بدي سي. أنا تخرجت بال 2019 من جاست و I applied after 2 years من graduation. I'm not sure إذا بقدر share my screen quickly, Dr. Rami.
Yeah, sure. Let me just find you first. Oh, okay.
Okay, it's fine إذا مش
No, yeah, you can do that. Go ahead. I think you can right now.
Right. Well, I'm gonna make it really quick لأنه أتوقع يعني most of the things were covered already. Thanks to Dr. Rami. First of all, congratulations if you have reached this far. معناته أنت you finished the USMLE exams ووصلت لهاي المرحلة. بس مهم جدا إنه هون يعني don't loosen up. المرحلة الجاي as important as the USMLE scores، ولكن مختلفة. التشالنجز اللي واجهتها بالستبس كانت إنك تقعد تدرس. حاليا في تشالنجز مختلفة بس لا تقل أهمية للماتش تبعك. بالنسبة لي أنا رتبت يعني شو أهمية الستبس اللي لازم تاخذها لحتى توصل للماتش. For me I found إنه الانترفيوز كانت أهم نقطة. في كثير ناس perfect candidates يعني بتشوفهم إنه علامات عالية research experience electives letter of recommendation but for some reason they did not match. I think that goes back للinterview skills اللي كانت عندهم. Do not underestimate قديش الانترفيو can make a huge difference. Prepare for the interviews a lot. Dr. Rami told you enough about it. But what I did, I personally studied interviews. أنا قرأت في 2 books. I would encourage all of you to actually read them. They are like 100 something pages. But be smart, go through specific pages, specific questions. Just be prepared. If you were asked this question, what would you be able to answer? Don't memorize. They can tell if you are rehearsing, but at least build an idea, build a concept you can talk about. It's very important during the interviews to show who you are as a person, as a well-rounded individual. They love this. They love to see a person اللي هو عنده hobbies, عنده interests, عنده يعني شخصية معينة بحب إنه يمارسها أو هوايات. مش بس مجرد شخص بيدرس أو طالب طب وما عنده أي هوايات ثانية. فلاحظت إنهم كثير بهموا هذا الموضوع، كثير بنبسطوا إنه مثلا هذا الشخص عنده هوايات خارج المجال الطبي، feel free إنك تحكي عنهم. غالبا هم they break the ice starting with these things. letter of recommendation شفتها هي كانت أهم شغلة. I don't have many things to add about it, بس I would say reach out early للphysicians you work with لأنه they might take time لحتى upload it. I think you already did that. ولاحظت إنه most people who applied 3+1, 3 letter of recommendation, US letter of recommendation plus 1 home, يعني كانت أمورهم منيحة. ف 3+1 is a good strategy. 3 US و1 home. البيرسونال ستيتمنت يعني ما في كلمات بتوفي حقها قديش انه لازم you invest in your personal statement. اقرا personal statement. يعني I think I read around 30 something personal statements before انه ابلش كتابه البيرسونال ستيتمنت تبعتي. personal statement بحبوها لانه again it shows who you are as a person. You got the scores, okay, good for you. You graduated from this university. You have this letter of recommendation. That's great. This is your knowledge. But some program directors be specific about who you are as a person. لأن أنت بالآخر حتشتغل ب working environment. You will be interacting with the other physicians, residents, nurses, all of that. فبيحبوا يشوفوا مين أنت as an individual. شو بتحب شو ما بتحب. وشغله يعني حسيت إنه البيرسونال ستيتمنت القوية كانت تعتمد على ثيم. إيش يعني ثيم؟ يعني لنفرض أنت عندك هوبي معين، أنت مثلا بتحب كرة القدم وكنت أنت الكابتن من طفولتك ولعبت وهاي الأشياء. ف you start with something similar and then you go للسبيشاليتي تبعتك. يعني keep in your mind إنه البروجرام دايركتور أو الليدرشيب عم يقرأوا hundreds of personal statements daily. ف you need personal statement to be attractive من البداية. شد اللي بده اللي يقرأها، خليه engaged، فرجيه كيف إنها this is not just another personal statement. This is more personalized, this is more creative. وخلي فيها theme خاص فيك. يعني زي ما حكيت لكم الهوبي تبعتك كيف انت ربطتها بالسبيشاليتي. يعني it's not easy, it can be very challenging, but again يعني if it was easy then everyone else would have done it. So be smart about your personal statement, make it emotional, stimulating and truthful. Connections, we already covered that. CV covered. Letter of interest, yes, يعني as Dr. Rami said, send letter of interest. يعني for me, I think I got around 3 interviews after sending emails للprogram directors. إنه this is me, this is what I like about your program, but be specific. Don't send just a generic email. إنه أنا بحب هذا البروجرام، بحب هاي المدينة، بحب هاي الولاية، عندي أنا أهل بهناك المكان. All these things can actually help بالانترفيو أو بالماتش. مس أنا حسيت إنه الناس كثير بتآمن فيها، بس إنه ما حسيت إنها وزن كثير بالماتش سيزون اللي فات، مع إنه كان شيء مختلف عن باقي السيزونز. بس الفكرة إنه كالتالي USMLE ماركس مش إشي، مش كل إشي. I'm sorry. يعني واحد جاي 250 خاصة السنة الماضية كثير في 260 they did not match because بالنسبة لهم okay I got the scores, I have it all covered, most probably I will match. بس they didn't. يعني you need to be more smart about other things to cover all the aspects, مش just إنه USMLE marks and that's it. University programs are better than affiliated community. This is true but not entirely true. بمعنى some university programs can be pretty malignant, very demanding, working hours عالية. بالتالي resident might not have time to participate in research أو to have time for themselves or stuff like that. فدور على البروجرام، شوف مين الريزيدنس اللي فيه، احكي معهم شو رأيكم. يعني most likely هم مش حيكونوا إنه والله هذا البروجرام bad، بس try to take information منهم as much as possible. شوف الريبيوتيشن تبعت البروجرام، الكلتشر، السب سبيشاليتي ماتش ريت اللي انت بدك اياها، ريزيدنس ويلنس، والمكان جدا مهم. المكان يعني اوكي في بروجرامز حلوين ومناح، بس يعني you will be spending 3 years in that place. يعني you don't want it to be in the middle of nowhere. apply exactly on time اللي هو مثلا بالنسبة لكم بعد less than 1 month. كثير ناس بيحكوا انه لازم اقدم on time حتى لو الابلكيشن تبعتي مش جاهزة. يعني 1 week won't do much harm صراحة. إذا أنت عم تستنى علامة معينة، إذا أنت عم تستنى letter of recommendation, give it time, wait few days بعدين you apply. It's not a big deal. Specialty X is not that competitive. يعني هون الموضوع كثير subjective. ما في specialty إنه والله هاي سهلة وهذيك. أوكي في specialties more hard than others، بس يعني you will be competing مع ناس من نفس المستوى. يعني if you are going into whatever specialty X كل الناس اللي حتنافس معهم هيكونوا من نفس المستوى مثلا أو قريب عليك، فالcompetitiveness حتكون متساوية بمعظم السبيشاليتيز. You need at least 6 interviews to match. يعني that was يعني المقولة المشهورة، بس إنه it's not entirely true. I know people who matched with 2 interviews last season. So have an open mind about that. البيرفكت كانديديت زي ما حكينا هاي USMLE سكورز تلعب دور اساسي، لانه غالبا حيكون في فلتريشن سيستم، بدنا العلامه كذا وبعدين حيبلشوا يشوفوا السي في تبعك. If you don't have the USMLE scores انت you might not be able to pass اصلا لحتى يشوفوا السكورز، لحتى يشوفوا السي في. الكلينيكال اكسبيرينس، السترونج letter of recommendation, research, publications, voluntary work, leadership skills. As I said, you as a person, not just you as a medical student or a physician. Fresh graduate, applying on time with a complete application, connections, and of course, some luck always. يعني you need it. يعني last thing I would like to say, الصورة أنا كثير بحبها. It's not about إنه خلاص I finished USMLE step 1 then the rest is piece of cake. No، في دائما في challenges ثانية، دائما في صعوبات حتواجهها. It gives you يعني the USMLE journey, it gives you the ability to overcome these challenges. It's not just إنه I passed the exam, that's it, I'm done. في دائما skills حتتعلمها، في دائما challenges أنت حتواجهها، فلازم تكون أنت مستعد لأي challenge أو أي مشكلة حتواجهك بهاي المشوار. Of course, you always need to pray or ask for the best. يعني trust the process in general. بس ليش الأخير اللي بدي أحكيه don't think of the US system as one unity. It's not an NHS ببريطانيا مثلا. US is a big country, 50 states. كل state فيها كذا county، كذا مستشفى. كل مستشفى له كرايتيريا معينة. حتى المستشفى نفسه إذا تغير البروجرام دايركتور نفسه ممكن تتغير الكرايتيريا. فما في 1 + 1 = 2. الموضوع كثير فلويد، في subjectivity عالية. ممكن يختاروا هذا الشخص لإشي حكاه بالانترفيو you would never know إيش هو كان، بس when you look at other things objectively it would be might not be the best candidate. ف always trust yourself, be confident في interviews are very important. You've reached this far. ما تتساهل وما تتراخى بموضوع الستبس القادم. I think that would be all for me. ما بعرف، يعني بحس انه لو في اسئله ونجاوبها، لانه كل شخص انا متاكد بيكون في عنده specific situation specific question، يمكن ما يتعمم على الباقيين.
يا اكيد، شكرا لك محمد، صراحه يعني معلومات جدا مفيده، ويعني اختصرت انت تقريبا معظم اللي حكيته، وبالعكس حتى زدت شغلات يعني بوينتس بجوز انا ما علقت عليها. وبالنسبه لك انت اكيد يعني خبرتك نوعا ما يعني اكيد تفيد، لانه انا يعني قدمت على الريزنسي ب 2013، فالي تقريبا 8 سنين، والسيستم كان غير، وانت زي ما حكيت هلا يعني it's a different system. So وفي انت نقطة يعني آخر نقطة علقت عليها اللي هي انه it's not all the same. وهي يعني بحب برضو عن يعني stress more about it، اللي هي يعني اوكي I showed you the data again. يعني انا بدي اعلق على النقطة I showed you the data. Yes, you get like a insight about your chances, but again you should try. زي ما حكيت انت you've reached that far, so just keep the good work on. هلا meanwhile I think انه نقدر ناخذ اسئله. في two options. you can use انا يعني واحد بده الشات اللي يحط الاسئله على الشات الاوبشن، او انه يعني come up يعني open the mic، او حتى الكاميرا يعني you can just open your camera. It's going to be face-to-face friendly discussion. But before we go for that, في دكتور محمد الغانم, I think he wants to share some tips with you.
سلامات جميعا، كيف أموركم؟ شكرا لكم. أنا I joined late، بس يعني I have few things to add. يعني اسمي محمد الغانم. I'm currently practicing in Houston, but I did 3 years as associate program director في University of Arizona. I just left like a month ago. فيعني صراحة being in the search committee and interview committee gave me more insight that I did not know before, how they select and how they go through the selection criteria. هسا few things هسا اللي حكاه الدكتور رامي ومحمد يعني they are on point يعني they on spot صراحة. The main thing بدي أكرره إنه apply for the programs that matches your criteria. Do not shoot high and also do not shoot low. مثلا الدكتور رامي حكى do not apply for Harvard or Cleveland. I agree. بس أنا مثلا لما قدمت على الماتش in 2011 it was very hard for me not to apply for the places that I did elective in. يعني أنا عملت elective في Mayo Clinic وفي Baylor. يعني multiple people told me do not apply, you're losing money. But I did apply. Now retrospect يعني صراحة I would still apply. يعني إذا في لك connection in a difficult place or a competitive place, I think it's worth applying. But your chances is still low. يعني I know one person, ما شاء الله عليه, he did elective in Cleveland and he applied to Cleveland and he got in Cleveland clinic في أوهايو. هاي أول واحدة. ثاني شغلة الكونكشن. إذا لاحظتوا الداتا تبعت رامي بحفظ الألقاب مع حفظ الألقاب بحكي لك إنه أغلب الناس حكت إنه الكونكشن helped me getting an interview بس only 10% answered interview and match. وهاي اللي بديش إياكم توقعوا فيها as a trap. Sometimes if you are pushed to get an interview, be the weakest person when they rank the candidates. فهمت علي؟ يعني أنت بدكش to ask for someone to push for you in a very or a highly competitive place. مثلا إذا لك connection في Mayo Clinic وأنت مثلا علاماتك عالية بس ما في عندك US experience ما في عندك research ما عندكش observership ولا شيء و you never been in touch with Mayo Clinic مثلا و you got an interview, your likelihood that you're not going to get matched is very high. I would say 100%. يعني انك اخذت انت الانترفيو كيف اللي بيحكوها احنا في مجتمعنا المخاجله. فهمت علي؟ بالعكس بجوز تضرك لانه لما يحطوا الرانك ليست راح تكون انت the weakest amongst all the interviewee. فهمت علي؟ وهي اول واحده. الشغله الثانيه انه يعني انا من الناس اللي انا قطعت عهد على نفسي انه I will never let anyone down when they ask me for help. But being as an associate program director, it's very difficult to recommend someone without knowing them. فأنا شو اللي بسويه لما حدا يحكي معي؟ الكل خير وبركة بس بطلع فيه. أول شيء أنا فيش حدا contacted me إلا إذا كنت مشغول جدا وأنا بعتذر إذا في حدا على الكول I did not contact them. إلا لازم أحكي معه وجها لوجه معها أو معه لأنه knowing the person in a phone call helps me know if this is a good candidate or no. لأنه مش كل واحد على البيبر is a good candidate and we know this from our life. صح؟ في ناس كثير علاماتهم عالية بس لما تحكي معه as a person it's he or she is not easily likable and this is a problem. فهمت علي؟ لأنك بدكش الكونكشن اللي إلنا في أمريكا to recommend someone and they will let them down. That's a big. ممكن الناس تسمعني تفكر إن أنا بحكي كلام خطأ بس this is true. إنه if I get someone to my program and he let all Jordanian down, that's the end. And I can tell you multiple places in the US where one candidate came, got an interview, got matched, he or she left a bad impression, للأسف الشديد. And that program, that's it. They said no more from that program. وهي صارت يعني أنا لما كنت في السيرش كوميتي في بعض الكاريبيان schools بيحكوا لا هاي هذا الكانديديت من السكول اللي الاكس ريزيدنت منها عملنا مشاكل بدناش we have to ask about them more carefully. فهمت علي؟ that's something this is my maybe advice for people who can help. بس لما تحكي مع الشخص بتعرفه أكثر وأنا لما أحكي مع شخص بسأله أشياء معينة زي ما حكيت لكم زي ما حكى الدكتور محمد إنه if you got an interview هاي my last comment you have a chance the same chance as anyone in the interview. فأنت do not feel down. If you pass the selection criteria or the filtering criteria and you got an interview you are a good candidate. بعدين أنا في رأيي لما تقعد في الانترفيو مع الفاكولتي the scores will be not counted. لأن خلاص أنت السكورز والستبس كانت جزء من الفلترنج سيستم. هسه بدهم إياك يحكوا معك كشخص، يعرفوك هل أنت شخص we can work with, is he someone or she is someone a team player or no. فهاي that's why أنا بأيد دكتور محمد إنه الانترفيو is a key. How you present yourself, how you sit, how you maneuver the interview. دائما حاول maneuver the interview to your strength areas and away from your weak point. يعني أنا آخر مثال، أنا من الناس اللي عملت 5 years residency in Jordan و I applied for neurology residency. يعني الناس تحكي لك اوف من general surgery للنيورولوجي. How did you get matched? That's مش اني انا smart, but you have to deviate the interview to your strength. يعني انا رجعت للميديكال سكول، رجعت لسم ريسيرش عملته ايام ميديكال سكول، وحاولت افسر انه ليش انا عملت surgery residency for multiple reasons. بس يعني حاول to guide your interview to your strength period. واسف للاطاله وشكرا لكم جزيلا.
لا بالعكس دكتور محمد، يعني بالعكس حابين نسمع منك كمان. دكتور محمد بالنسبة لي هو يعني أكثر من مجرد صديق وزميل و يعني أخ عزيز. وصراحة يعني دكتور محمد الغانم قصته بالماتش يعني it shows how persistent و how ambitious he is. I know يعني I know him personally, I know his story very well. And it's good to see how far he went. He went from very tough situation. We're both in that situation. وكيف إنه قدر ينجح و move forward بعزمه وإصراره، وطبعا يعني توكل على رب العالمين. وصلنا إنه يكون إنه ده أعطانا ملاحظاته، وإن شاء الله إنه يعني يكون دائما بالمساعدة، وأكيد إحنا أكيد ما بيقصر يعني. طيب
مشكور. I will leave my email and I have to jump out. I will leave my email. Anyone wants to contact me for any help or any advice, I'm more than happy. وشكرا انكم سمحتوا لي اني اكون صديقي رامي، الله يرضى عليك.
تسلم. طيب هلا بعرف في عنده أي سؤال آخر يعني آخر I think experience في الدكتور عبد الله مقدادي. I hope إنه هو دكتور عبد الله هو معانا هلا بالريزيدنت كوميتي. وصراحة الستوري تاعته يعني was very يعني أنا بالنسبة لي شخصيا يعني عبد الله من الناس اللي نفس الشيء يعني كانت ظروفهم نوعا ما صعبة وظلهم ثابرين و persistent يعني until he got where he is right now. دكتور عبد الله كيفك؟
السلام عليكم، يعطيكم العافيه جميعا. شكرا دكتور رامي، شكرا احمد، شكرا دكتور محمد، شكرا للجميع على الويبينار يعني. وان شاء الله فرصه طيبه هيك الكل ان شاء الله بيكون بيقدر يحقق الاشياء اللي بده اياها. انا اعرفكم بنفسي، اسمي عبد الله مقدادي. انا graduate of 2018 from Jordan University of Science and Technology. كملت بالوقت هذاك، قدمت على الماتش. I did not like secure a position at that time. هي لو انا بدي الشيء اللي بدي احاول اوصله ممكن something different is that خلينا نقول persistence، او احاول احكي لكم انه always يعني grip the hold. خلينا نقول الشيء اللي ممكن يساعدك انك توصل. انا السكورز تبعوني كانوا افريج، كانوا بال20s، و at that time I was like feeling it will be very difficult. راح يكون شيء صعب كثير بالنسبه لك. but at the same time كنت انا بدي اجرب حظي، وبدي بالاخر ما في شيء قصتك انت بتصنعها، ما في حدا والله بيقدر انه يملي عليك نموذج معين. I applied first time, did not work out for me. انا حتى قدمت على تقريبا 180 بروجرام، وهذاك الوقت ما نفعت الامور. I spoke to myself what do I need at that time. ما كان في عندي publications، ما كان في عندي والله step 3، ما كان في عندي خلينا نقول يعني لاحظت انه في شويه deficit points. ف I did not match. ف I joined family medicine residency in Jordan. At that time I applied بس على الانترنال. I joined family medicine residency. جوردن يونيفرسيتي اوف ساينس اند تكنولوجي completed 2 years. وخلال هالسنتين طبعا الحمد لله ما قصرت ويعني اديت وظيفتي على اكمل وجه قد ما تمكنت. مش انه والله كانت خلينا نحكي ترانزيشنال بيريود انه والله فقط as a bridge. لا, at that time did my best in residency, or at the same time I worked on publications. I خلينا نقول scheduled for step 3. و at that time was يعني in the middle of the crisis of COVID. يعني كان كثير امور صعبه بالنسبه لنا، حتى يعني انا حصلت observership في مايو كلينيك بس بسبب الكوفيد هو كان يعني كانسل. اضافه للستيب 3 كثير بتعرفوا اذا بتتذكروا موضوع الريستركشن على الترافل كان كثير صعب. فخلينا نقول ما يعني حاولت كثير قدر الامكان لمده اشهر حتى اني قدرت احصل تيكت والله ورحت والحمد لله امتحنت ورجعت. ف at the time of the match خلينا نقول انا تركت gap 1 year for me to prepare. يعني I knew خلينا نحكي بدي وقت اكثر. انا انت عملت ريسيرش بس in order to get publications بدك ممكن وقت. ف I left 1 year gap. في هذاك الوقت انا كنت بعمل ريزيدنسي، ف theoretical speaking ما في عندي gap year. ولما كملت سنتين كان في عندي والله 3 publications. I did step 3 والحمد لله كان في عندي good preparation. Started preparing early للماتش. يعني اشتغلت مضبوط على البيرسونال ستيتمنت، اشتغلت مضبوط على recommendation. تواصلت مع البروفايدرز very early, tried to make drafts to send them. كان في عندي خلينا نحكي كم هيك فريند باليو اس. حاولت اني استشيرهم من ناحيه والله بروف ريدنج للسي في، من ناحيه تحسين ايش ممكن احسن، ايش ممكن خلينا نقول احصل البرامج ممكن اقدم عليها. فلما تقدر خلينا نقول تبدا بكير تقدر انك توصل لنتيجه كويسه. عملت هذا الشيء وقدمت وكنت عارف يعني ممكن انا بنصحكم جزء زي ما بنصح نفسي، يعني جزء من النجاح بالماتش بالذات انك تتوقع ايش اللي ممكن يصير. يعني احنا بنحكي عن فيرتشوال فحكيت راح يكون في كثير كومبتitiveness، يعني ما راح تكون الامور والله مثاليه. I choose to apply for 3 specialties. قدمت على الانترنال ميديسن، قدمت على الفاميلي ميديسن، وقدمت على النيورو ميديسن. وطبعا at the same time انا اعطيت كل تخصص حقه، يعني مش انه والله كنت هيك جنريك خلينا نقول. يعني I played it smart. السي في بالنسبه لي خليتها نوعا ما هيك جنرال، بس بالنسبه للليترز ريكومنديشن والبيرسونال ستيتمنت هم خليتهم يعني سبيسيفيك لكل سبيشالتي. و I was not خلينا نقول انه والله trying to خلينا نقول to play. انا فعلا كنت انترستد بهال3 سبيشالتيز يعني، وهذا شيء كويس انك يكون في عندك والله ability to exclude. يعني والله في تخصصات معينه انا ما بدي اياها. بالاخر بدك تمشي مع التيار للامان الى حد ما. مش معنى هذا الحكي انك to end up at somewhere that you don't like، بس الوضع الحالي بيفرض انك لازم فعلا انك تقرا الواقع كويس. بالاخر في عندك شيء انت عندك وشيء بتطرح له شو الفرص اللي انا بدي اختار منها. applied for internal medicine, applied for family medicine, applied for neuro. حاولت احصل البرامج، دورت. ممكن بالفاميلي ميديسن ما كان في حدا والله عنده اكسبيرينس، يعني ما قدرت اوصل لحدا. كان في عندي فريندز بالفاميلي ميديسن بالستيتس، يعني انا تواصلت معهم وخلينا نقول ساعدوني في اختيار البرامج اللي ممكن تفيدني. قدمت عليها. الحمد لله حصلت انا 3 انترفيوز بالانترنال، حصلت 1 انترفيو بالنيورو، وحصلت 2 انترفيوز بالفاميلي ميديسن. واي جوت ماتشد فروم يعني those 2 انترفيوز ان فاميلي ميديسن. حاليا انا فاميلي ميديسن ريزيدنت في سوما هيلث في اوهايو في باربرتون. سعيد الحمد لله، وهذا شيء كويس بالذات انه بالبدايه كانت الامور كثير صعبه. ويو كومبير يور سيلف، انت قاعد تحكي والله في سكورز 260s، انا السكورز تبعوني يعني 220s كانوا، وهذا شيء يعني ما بخجل فيه، لانه each specific time انت بتكون تقدر تحقق شيء معين. ولكن الفكره انك تكمل الطريق وانك تكيب يعني خلينا نقول improving yourself. Each one of us has his own strengths, has his own like weaknesses. Just start complete working in your خلينا نقول deficit points، وبالاخر يعني اكيد راح توصل. الرساله ممكن هيك كلمه ختاميه انه stay persistent, be smart، خلينا نقول be able خلينا نقول to adapt السيتويشن اللي انت بتتعرض لها والوضع اللي انت بتمر فيه. بيصير انا بتوقع كمان يعني مثل ما حكى الدكتور رامي انه تكون برضه كمان كومبيتيتيف كثير. بنصح الجميع be smart but at the same time يعني ما يكون عندك والله اوفر كونفدنس في موضوع انه خلينا نقول والله تقدم على very limited number of programs. انت حسب الوضع تبعك انت ادرى، استشير وقدم وان شاء الله امورك بتمشي. One last thing is the preparation. يعني you have to put يعني effort في موضوع البريباريشن انترفيو. هلا الان الزوم موجود وصار كثير شيء سهل والله، مع صاحب لك مع فريند لك كثير البريباريشن كثير كفيل بانها تكسر حاجز، بالذات اذا حدا منكم مثلا ما قدر والله يطلع والله اوبزرفر شيبس او ليكتيفز، ممكن يكون في نوعا ما حاجز. جرب انك تحكي والله مع صديق لك list all the questions اللي ممكن انك تنسالها، وهالبراكتس هذا كثير كفيل بانه والله يكسر حاجز وكفيل بانه يساعدك انك توصل للمقابله. ولا ثينك once you reach the interview بعد هيك مثل ما حكوا الشباب يعني خلص انت بالاخر مثلك مثل اي كانديديت. it's all on you, it's all on showing يعني you being genuine, being خلينا نقول sincere and being خلينا نقول someone they will be willing to work with. فذاتس it. ان شاء الله كل التوفيق للجميع، واذا في حدا عنده سؤال يعني مساعدتي المجال. شكرا.
شكرا كثير دكتور عبد الله، صراحه يعني مداخله جدا كويسه ومفيده. وانا زي ما حكيت لكم يعني عبد الله هو مثال على يعني التصميم انه يحقق الهدف تاعه. من صراحه من الشغلات اللي حكاها يعني عبد الله اللي هو يعني know your deficit, especially يعني الناس اللي with a previous unsuccessful match يعني. You did not match for a reason صراحة. يعني ممكن في مرات في نوع من الحظ بالماتش للأسف يعني. ممكن اثنين نفس credentials they took someone why did not take the other one. But there must be a deficit. Look where is your deficit and try to improve it. في شغلة إنه دائما أنا يعني بحاول أحكيها للنيو applicants اللي هي شغلتين يعني don't really worry much about them. يعني in retrospect أنا بتذكر يعني I was very much stressed اللي هي شغلة التايم، لأنه أنا I have to apply now، أنا بديش أستنى سنة أو بديش أضيع وقت. والشغلة الثانية اللي هي كمان الماني، يعني I don't want to spend more money. بس believe me يعني in retrospect لما الواحد يحصل يجي هون إن شاء الله إن الكل بيحصل بوصل هون وحصل بوزيشن وبيشتغل. if you look in retrospect بطل الوقت أو الماني يعني is going to be a big issue. خلاص you move forward. master your application, know your deficit، وإن شاء الله إنه يعني الجميع بنكون موفقين. ممكن نبلش من أسئلة. ممكن عبد الله وأحمد if you want to also jump in to answer the questions please do يعني. اللي هو في أول سؤال year of graduation does it affect I don't know apply twice you know seem to be very it does affect some programs. Actually they don't like all the graduates for some reason. I think they like people to be fresh from out of medical school. So actually some programs actually they put a limit on how many years you have to be out of medical school, 3 or 5 years. But some programs they don't. It also depends what are you doing in these like years. Being in residency مثلا عبد الله I think one of the factors أتوقع من الشغلات اللي يعني it help you أنك أنت you are in residency program in family medicine program. بس أنت تكون مثلا شغال GP أو مثلا somewhere is not really related to patient care. I think that may harm you. So yeah, two things: how far you are from medical school, and what are the reason you were, took you that long to apply. So زي ما محمد الغانم حكى دكتور محمد إنه you always use this rather than as a weakness point, as a strength point. You can come up with a reason that's why you're late when applying. And if you got interviews so في الناس اللي اللي قدموا السنة الماضية و didn't apply, you have to ask yourself, did you get interviews or you not get interviews? So if you got interviews, especially if you got like good number, like 3, 4, maybe 6, you have to ask yourself, probably there's a problem with your interview skills. You have to work on it. If you not get interviews, probably you have something in your application that had to be filtered out. So you have to look for things that to bypass the selection process, the collection, emails, the programs, and research, all this stuff.
I'm sorry دكتور رامي إذا يعني if I would like to add something على اللي حكيته يعني very important, don't be anchoring على إنه why I did not match. يعني some people you think إنه it could be the graduation year but could it be something else. الفكرة إنه بهاي الحالات ما بعرف يمكن الأفضل إنه send your CV, send your personal statement, يعني all your application, make someone else read it, give you your feedback. It could be something else مش بس ال graduation year. فيعني شوفي ايش ممكن اشياء ثانيه بتكون اثرت على موضوع الماتش.
Mr. Muhammad. Second question, any ERAS application editing services that you recommend? صراحة أنا personally I don't know any service. I know some for the personal statements, but not for the ERAS. And honestly, يعني بالنسبة when it comes to ERAS application, you can ask some people like with good experience, you know, to help reviewing the application. بس يعني الفكرة في فكرة برضو حكيناها نوعا ما بالمحاضرة إنه يعني yes, it would be good to have a perfect application without any mistakes or like kind of the best application, but you have to be yourself. You don't want to ask someone to write the application for you. You know, you write it yourself and then ask someone to review it. That's my 2 cents on this. Rashid Muhammad, is anything to add? Okay. What is a reasonable number of programs to apply if you're applying to a moderately competitive specialty in your opinion?
Yeah, I can answer
Yeah,
this. أتوقع يعني most likely المعظم بيسأل إنه شو الافريج نمبر of applicants الناس قدموا عليها. يعني you don't want to be below people ولا above. فشوف شو معظم الناس قدمت, apply to a similar number. بس of course you need to go to each program على الويب سايت, شوف شو الكريتيريا تبعتهم, هل تنطبق علي ما تنطبق علي. وفي سؤال بعده كان إنه if like 3 cut off points عن الستيب. هلا مرات مثلا كمثال انا في لي صديق قدم على بروجرام ما اتش فيه. البروجرام كان كاتب انه they need 3 months of elective in the US. However he did only 2 وقدم عليه وما اتش فيه. فيعني sometimes الكرايتيريا ما بتكون strict 100%. يعني زي ما حكينا في fluidity بالموضوع. ف يعني you need to ask كم بروجرام الناس قدمت عليه. الكرايتيريا most likely will be applied, بس انه في exceptions معينه خاصة if you know someone in that program, if you did elective in that program, إيش زي هيك.
Yeah. I will go back to the number of applications question. There are 2 points to make here. First of all, there's a point you mentioned earlier, Muhammad, you know, there's no such moderately competitive specialty. You should think about the match as competitive, period, you know, because again, as Muhammad Haka, and you're competing. It's not about the specialty itself. It's like whom you're competing with. You're competing with ناس من all over the world. Some of them have very good credentials, research experience. Some of them with master degrees. So you have to look at it this way. Don't look at the specialty. And then number of applications, you can apply to 30 programs and match. You can apply 200 programs and not match. So there's no magic number. This is one of the reasons why we're trying to do the data and to be tailored specifically to the Jordanians. see exactly those who matched, like did they apply for more, which if you can remember, was no difference actually. So it's really up to you, like, your budget, what are like the programs you like. Don't apply everywhere. Apply where you think that you can belong. مثلا. Don't apply to a city that you think you can't live with, especially if you have family, all this stuff. So do your search, do your own stories. I mean, Abdullah حكى. Don't follow step everyone. الداتا والقصص اللي نسمعها عملنا المحاضرة هاي to give you general ideas. Let's make your own story. That's probably one of the best, think if you can live with, that would be it. Again, on 3 points question, I don't have a US clinical experience, but I do know American radio oncologists to write me a letter. Yeah, definitely. هلا في ناس كتير بيسألوا شغلة اللي هي American boarded, does it really make any difference? I mean, probably would be better than someone who is not American boarded, but generally speaking, US, they like to have a US, someone who's practicing in the US rather than someone who's American boarded, if I got your question right. Next question is about US experience and getting a little recommendation from the US. Some of the US weren't able to be elective due to health situation. Do you think that's going to be a game-changing point and really lower the chances of matching? That's a good question, actually. And this is one of the things that while we're preparing our paper, we kind of like touch base on it. Yes, it may affect people and negatively, but at the same time, this affected the whole international medical graduates. So it's not like it's going to affect only Jordanians. It's going to affect all MDs. So probably programs, they're going to be aware that, they don't have a US experience. So maybe they're not going to be more, concentrating on it. I'm not 100% sure. But the only way to know is when we know the results of this year or probably the year after.
ممكن دكتور رامي اضيف عن الاكسبيرينس تبعتي. انا سوري نسيت احكي لكم. انا لما قدمت على الماتش ما كنت عامل الكتيف، عملت الكتيف بنفس الشهر، يعني زي هيك بهاي الفتره السنه الماضيه كنت عم بعمل الكتيف. كانت ظروف جدا صعبه، الالكتيف اللي حصلته التغى، ما كان في سفر وريستريكشنز، يعني بتعرفوها اكيد كلكم مريتوا فيها. اللي عملته اني رحت على برايفت براكتس، عياده كلينيك، مش افلييتد ولا الدكتور بيشتغل بجامعه ولا اي شيء. هذا اللي قدرت احصله، هذا اللي عملته. It was as simple as this. ما كان في اي فرص اخرى. فالفكره انه you need to compensate for this deficit بالسي في. ما عندك elective من university program, yes it affects you. لانه يعني at the end of the day انا مثلا عملت بكلينيك، ما عملت بمستشفى، مش inpatient hospital. بس how to compensate for that بالاشياء اللي حكيتها انا قبل شوي. السي في تبعتك you need to professionally express who you are as a person. شو الاشياء اللي انت عملتها بحياتك ممكن تغطي عن هذا الشيء. الانترفيوز تبعتك احكي لهم انه والله انا ما قدرت اعمل 1 2 3 ولكن انا عملت الاشياء الفلانيه، بحيث انها تحاول تغطي عن النقص اللي صار بالسي في. ف it affects yes، بس هم برضه عارفين الريستريكشنز اللي صايره. بس however اكيد اي حدا عنده experience US clinical experience يعتبر احسن. ف think of ways to compensate for this بالسي في تبعتك. احكيها بالانترفيو، اكتبها بالبيرسونال ستيتمنت، اكتبها بالسي في however you like.
شكرا محمد. Could taking step 3 be harmful to you in the match? Muhammad, did you take step 3? Ahmed?
Not yet. أنا امتحاني بعد 3 months، بس يعني مقارنة بالناس اللي أخذوها I think إنه it gives a slight push بالmatching season.
هلا step 3, if you get good score, yes, it will help you, especially if you have one of the other steps that is low. It can overcome, compensate a bit, that you say that, yeah, I have two scores, two exams that are good. That one probably I had some situation. Again, when we talk that, it can give you benefit for H1 visa. And important, في شغلة important بالstep 3 that it's pass fail most of the time. It's not really necessarily for the match, but it's very important sometimes for fellowship, because the same thing apply for the residency, same thing apply for the fellowship. Some fellowship programs, they filter applications based on USMLE exams, and step 3 one of them. So just keep in mind that don't just do it because you have to do it. Aim for a high score, and sometimes it may not give you really benefit. It's gonna help you if it is really high. It's gonna harm you if it's really low. Do you advise couples to apply for couples matching? للأمانة العلمية صراحة, my experience with couple matching is very limited. I know in some programs it does help, especially if one of the couples is a very good candidate, so they're willing to take the partner just because they want to get the other one. I don't really recall any statistics about couple matching. ما صراحة بديش أحكي جواب ويعني ويطلع شيء ثاني. أنا ما بعرف إذا أحمد أو عبد الله عندهم any different experience. Yeah. Okay. Is question about step 1 pass fail, is that going to affect the chances for IMGs to match in internal medicine or even in general? There are currently many reports that like now people are stressing on that by eliminating step 1 score, first is going to increase the emphasis on step 2 score, and it can negatively impact actually IMGs. Like for example, surgical programs, most of them actually, they decide on applications based on step 1. I don't know why, but they put a lot of weight on step 1. So I mean, like now the ECFMG and is like in the process of restructuring the whole residency and application thing, and even the exams. So until we know more data, we have more data about how did that impact. I think the way to look at it is that since the step 1 is going to be pass fail, try to make the other elements of our applications perfect. Your step 2 score, you have like an extra curriculum activities like research, voluntary activities, and also kind of start building your connection from now. One question, do applying for the match more than once lower your chances of getting interviews? It really depends, it depends why you applied to begin with. Abdullah, you can answer. You applied twice.
The most important, I kept like hearing that it might affect, but for me, at the first time when I applied, I got 1 interview, and in my reattempt, I secured 6 interviews. So I think it depends on your credentials and your CV. Like they might ask you in the interviews, like why did you not match, or what was the reason for that, and you can like justify. There might be a reason, but I believe like actually the reason is the most important thing is your credentials. Your credentials is at the time of the match. And something that I'd like to mention, if you have kind of barrier of any kind or any gap, you cannot change that. The only thing you can do is just to go with that. Try to fix what you can fix, try to look at the deficit. But for example, if you are an old graduate, if you have an attempt, if you have a low score, like you cannot, thinking more about the problem cannot add something for you. Just try to do something, try to your chance. You don't know, like if people will like just keep saying this might affect, this might not affect. There is no way to learn or to know unless like you try. So my recommendation is just go for it. And again, if you are not ready, my recommendation is to give yourself the time that you need. So maybe apply at the time when you feel more comfortable, when you feel like you will be having the greatest chances. But if you have something, that's all about it. You cannot change anything. And try to compensate and add things, research, step free, electives, whatever you can.
شكرا عبد الله. That was a good advice. في محمد, he has a question. محمد, go ahead.
مرحبا دكتور, يعطيك العافية.
الله يعافيك.
أنا بدي أوضح سؤالي. هو يعني جنسيته أمريكية وأمريكان بورد راديو أونكولوجيست. هلا أنا بعرفه عن طريق إنه هو قاعد بدرس عربي وأنا يعني بعطيه سيشنز عربي وبنفس اللحظة بعلمني إنجليزي, بس معظم حكينا بكون عن الميديسن وأنا علاماتي 250s يعني حاب يساعدني هو. هل كتابته لللتر بتساعدني؟
صراحة, I think that the best one to answer this question is هو نفسه. يعني you just ask him, see exactly what is he's willing to do. He might بيحكي لك, ممكن يحكي لك اوكي ما عندي مشكلة, I'll write you one. ممكن يحكي لك لا. هلا في شغلة مهمة انه بالليتر لما تنكتب بالعادة letter of recommendation author they usually have to this is a general rule, and they have to mention what are the settings that they worked with you and for how long. يعني it would be challenging انه ما بعرف هو how he will write it, but I think you won't lose anything if you ask him. Just ask him, see exactly what he thinks, and you take it from there. I think it might be a good one actually. Okay. في حدا عنده حاب يحكي سؤال على المايك؟ ندى؟ ما بعرف. ممكن طيب, في سؤال, how do you fill out the descriptions part of each work experiences? Ahmed, can you answer this question since you applied last year?
اوكي, الورك اكسبيرينس بيعتمد على what type of work. هي بتيجي كاتيجوري كبيره work experience, but it can be filled with many things. بالنسبه لنا قد لا تكون work as per se. I would start, يعني اللي انا عملته, I would start اذا شيء هو مش معروف بالنسبه لهم, حبلش ب one sentence. ايش هو السيتنج, اسم المكان, ايش طبيعه العمل تبعته. حكتب كثير مهم تكتب الاشياء اللي انت تعلمتها من هذا المكان. يعني لا تكثر حكي عن المكان شو هو ومين هو, they could just google it, بس اكتب انت as a person ايش كانت وظيفتك, ايش اللي عملته وايش تعلمته. فيعني I think that's the most important things, انهم يشوفوا انت شو السكيلز اللي تعلمتها من الورك اكسبيرينس هاي, وشو كانت وظيفتك بهذا الورك setting.
Yeah, I agree with Muhammad. Sorry, Ahmed. Yeah, you have to be concise. You don't have to write everything. At the same time, just mainly here working skills. يعني ايش انت مثلا, فرضا انت هلا مثلا resident بمركز الحسين السرطان. Yeah, what are the working skills you gained? Admitting patients, rounding with patients, and you can also add professional skills like attending teaching conferences, doing procedures, and all that. Yeah, you don't have to be very complicated. Just right on the spot.
I can add something. Like, remember, you will have time in the interview to elaborate and to illustrate what that experience was. So try to be like concise, be specific, and in the interview you can elaborate more on how was that.
في سؤال, would you add countries rotations such as Jordan or UAE to the work experience, or the US? Yeah, definitely. If you feel that this experience actually gave you kind of like, you gained like a skill, or kind of showed how persistent, or like how enthusiastic you are to be in the match, yes, why not? Like if you did a rotation somewhere in the UAE or one of the hospitals there, yeah, why not? I think any relevant experience that you think it may catch the eyes and you may end up being asked about it and you can highlight yourself, just add it. Not only the US, no. Based on that, also similar to that, if the work was unpaid or training, can we write it as a work? Yes, actually, this is where it belongs. So the application has 3 parts, right? So research, voluntary experience, and work experience. So this is where you put all the training, research, previous work experience, GP, internship, anything like this. If I'm currently unemployed, how I can explain this on my CV and interviews? Oh, that's a tough one, actually. I can't think about anything on top of my head.
Dr. Rami, can I take this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it depends على how many months or how many years. يعني for example, if you finished internship, you applied to the match this year, هاي لا تعتبر gap. الفترة اللي أنت you applied to the match, the clock stops، مش هتكمل عد. يعني هاي الفترة من 21 لحد ما إن شاء الله you match, this is not considered as a gap. هلا إذا في gap قبل، يعني you finished internship, then 1 year, 2 years, and then came you applied to the match. هلا هاي الشغله بتختلف، يعني اللي حكي مش evidence based, it's just based on experiences من friends أو يعني people. I know people who had 2 years gaps. They worked for a few months in a GP clinic. They just did that, tried it إنه كتبوا إنه اشتغلنا إحنا GP بالفترة الفلانية ولا شيء in private setting. It's fine يعني they matched even after 2 years من gap. One of them matched معي بواشنطن. ف it's fine. يعني موضوع الجاب year you can manipulate it لما تحكي بالانترفيو، يعني you can find a way to work يعني to find a way to go around it. احكي لهم انه والله بهاي الفتره انا صار في عندي ظروف شخصيه، هاي الفتره انا كنت عم بدرس فيها على الستبس it's fine تفرجيهم انه انت والله it wasn't easy، يعني you struggled but however you managed to complete the task, you learned a lot. يعني دائما بيحكوا اذا في عندك شغله نقص احكيها واحكي كيف انت تعلمت منها. يعني انا كانت هاي الفتره صعبه، اضطريت اني اخذ اجازه عن كل الشغل عشان مثلا بس بدي ادرس فيها، بس بعد ما خلصت تعلمت انه how to make time management. تعلمت انه I can do multiple things at one time. اذا يعني بعد فتره انت رجعت اشتغلت، يعني عادي ممكن تكتب او تحكي انه كيف هاي الشغله weakness بس انت حولتها ل strength. يعني that's what usually advised to.
تمام، شكرا محمد. One more, I think we can take more few questions. And if my hometown was in Hungary, and should I add my permanent address as a Hungarian or American address? على ما أعرف, do you live in the US? If you live in the US, it's always better to do the US address. I mean, that's the easiest way to do it. If you live in Hungary, I think you should put it there. There are like a very small details in the application that probably, won't really hit much like the way you look at it. Like the address, there's certain things, adding it or changing it doesn't really make any difference. I hope I addressed your question. Is working as a GP considered a gap for a specialty like family medicine? I don't think so. No, actually, you can use that as a way of of saying that you're doing this because you're interested in family medicine. I think probably Abdullah he has a better answer.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Ahmed. Of course, يعني هو family medicine it's all about being comprehensive. being a GP, يعني as long as you sell it and explain in the CV, يعني how did that help? How will that be helping you when you become a resident? يعني هو انت when you write the CV try to answer يعني how will that help you if you get the position. Being a GP of course can be a positive point as a family medicine.
شكرا عبد الله. Yeah, بس point I just want to يعني دكتور محمد الغانم he mentioned any weakness in your anything in your CV you can use it in a way to your strength. GP you can say yeah I'm doing that because I'm interested in such I just want to take the patient as a whole. I'm a generalist. That's why I'm interested in internal medicine. The same thing, you're like surgery and now you're applying for internal medicine. You can use that, like you can always narrate your story in a way that this is you're good. Is ERAS CV has its own template or we must write it? No, it has its own template. So I advise you, you know, if you're really applying to the match this year, just start doing that now. It's a template. It has different categories where you can put your experiences, your training, and your degrees, education, all that. Okay. Okay, I think we're almost done. Before we قبل ما نخلص حاب إذا في عبد الله أو أحمد they have anything to add as a final statement يعني.
Yes, يعني I can only imagine إنه أنا السنة الماضية يعني I was in your shoes. It was very stressful. في أشياء كثير عم بفكر فيها، هل رح تزبط هاي هل ما رح تزبط هاي. Trust me, things will work out. يعني just do your best, do all you can, trust the process. الجيرني مش سهلة. You've come so far. ما في مشكلة إنه you go also يعني push yourself even harder at these times. ويعني إن شاء الله بتوفيق من الله حتمشي الأمور. بس خلي ببالك إنه إذا لا سمح الله things did not work out بالشكل اللي أنت بدك إياه, either you did not match أو you matched in place you did not like أو whatever يعني regardless of the options. You never know when الخير مكتوب لك. يمكن الله مش كاتب لك تمتش هاي السنة مش هاي السنة الجاية تمتش في مكان أحسن في ظروف أحسن في وضعية أفضل. فيعني trust the process. ما في أي مشكلة إذا بتتأخر أو يعني أي شيء أنت ممكن تشوفه إنه this is harmful. بس يعني إن شاء الله بيكتب الخير للجميع وبالتوفيق جميعا يا رب.
شكرا أحمد. عبد الله.
I'd like to add, always perceive each experience that you pass through as a way to grow. Either you achieved what you was looking for or you did not. It's a way to grow and it's a way to try to fix things. وأكيد يعني you have to keep your belief. In the end يعني it's your own experience. There is no one else ever يعني can tell you what you can do or you what cannot do. Cannot be data, but always concentrate on your own path. Everyone has his own strengths. Keep persistent, keep optimistic. Everything happens for a reason. For me personally, if I did not pass through my experience, I would not do or add or improve the things that I have improved. وحقيقة هو هذا الشيء الأهم بالآخر. It's a matter of being continuous improvement. ان شاء الله all the best of luck for all the candidates وكل التوفيق للجميع.
شكرا عبد الله. أنا بالنسبة لي الفاينل ستيتمنت إنه yes we give advices, we give tips, we show data, we share your experiences, we share stories. At the end of the day, it's your own pathway, it's your own story. You get benefit from others. You get help from others as well, but this is your own pathway. Narrate your own story, show your strengths, come up with don't look on your weaknesses. Be optimistic, being here in this webinar, actually, this is a sign that you're willing to take, the effort to succeed. And, reaching thus far actually is a good sign that, you're doing the effort to do that. So just want to thank you, everyone, to be here. And I'd like to thank Ahmed and Abdullah for all this beneficial and very helpful experiences that they shared with us, and all the tips. And hopefully, in the committee, we're gonna do more job, help you, and hopefully we're gonna see all of you in the US one day. Thank you all.